Hello everyone, this is Mahesh and today I am going to read you a story from Chandamama, the daughter of a river. This story is from May 2006 issue of Chandamama. A tributary of river Narmada, Revati flowed through the kingdom of Rajpur, where Rajendra Singh was the ruler. He was without a child for a long time. He and Queen Ahilyabai undertook frequent pilgrimages to the Durga temples which dotted the countryside. Soon the queen was expecting a baby. Rajpur was around that time experiencing intense drought. Rains had failed for 1 or 2 years. River Revati, which was the main source of water, had dried up, and the people had to trek long distances to fetch water from Narmada for their daily needs. The drought conditions led to near famine, and the king had to permit his subjects to leave the kingdom. It was in such a disturbed state that the queen gave birth to a pretty looking baby girl. Rajendra Singh did not want any celebrations in the palace. He went around the temples offering worship and praying for an end to the famine so that his subjects could come back. In the temple dedicated to Shakti, his prayers seemed to have been heard by the Divine Mother. The king heard a voice. Son, go and offer worship to my sister Narmada, who will grant you your wish. On his return to the palace, he told Ahilyabai of what the goddess told him. The queen expressed her desire to offer worship to the river. The Raj Jyotishi set a date for their journey to the river. The king and queen started in two palkways. There was no large entourage to accompany them except the king's personal attendant, the queen's maid, a priest, and the palki bearers. They left the palace well before dawn so as not to attract the notice of the inmates of the palace or the few householders in their room. They reached Narmada as the first rays of sun fell on the earth. The king and queen waited till the priest and the king's attendant made a makeshift kund. As he began the simple rituals and chantings, the priest asked the king and the queen to get into the river and pray. Ahilyabai handed the baby to her maid and followed the king into the river. They stood waist deep in water and prayed with ardent devotion. It did not take long before the goddess of the river appeared before them. I am pleased with your devotion. Give up your daughter to me, and the kingdom will be saved from drought and famine. You will soon be blessed with another child, a son. Your daughter will be looked after well. The goddess then disappeared. The king and queen were at their wits' end. They had been blessed with a child after years of pilgrimages and prayers. How could they give up a gift that had come from the divine? My lord, let us go back and consult our Rajguru, said Ahilyabai after coming out of the river. No, my queen, we shall not give an opportunity to anybody to go against the wishes of the goddess, though he or she may mean well for us, said Rajendra Singh. We must obey her command. After all, didn't she promise the boon of a son? Moreover, our people are to get a greater boon when there will be rains and there will no longer be famine. We have to suppress our sorrow and abide by the goddess's wishes. Wonder of wonders, as they were consoling themselves, a basket came floating down the river as if it was sent by the goddess. Rajendra Singh and Ahilyabai stepped into the river and the king placed the infant in the basket. They watched the basket float by for some time before they waded back and went up to where their palkis waited for them. With great difficulty, Ahilyabai controlled her tears. Her maid helped her to get into the palki. The king's palki followed from behind. The priest and the king's attendant formed the rear of the small procession. Before the sun had set that day, thunder clouds formed in the horizon, and there was torrential rain in the kingdom for the next few days. Many of the people returned to their homes. The parched land was soon ready for cultivation, and the people looked forward to end to the famine. The king and queen had full faith in the divine to take care of their baby. Dhan Singh was a Rajput chieftain of Amritpur, which lay in the valley not far from the fort city of Mandu. The river Narmada flowed through the forest on the north of Amritpur. Frequently, Dhan Singh would take long walks in the forest and go and sit by the river, enjoying the cool breeze. He had hardly sat on his favorite rock when he espied a basket floating down the river. When it came near where he was sitting, he thought he heard a baby's cries. He left the rock, got into the river, and was shocked to see a baby inside the basket. He took the baby in his hands, and when surprisingly it stopped crying, to his dismay, he saw the basket floating away, leaving him to wonder whether it had contained any message or indication about the identity of the baby. He hurried back to his mansion, where a small crowd of curious attendants gathered around him. At that time, Dhan Singh had not been married, but there were a few maids in his employ. He handed the baby to an elderly maid. The next few days, he spent his time contemplating how he would rear the baby girl. She was very pretty looking, and so he gave her the name Roopmati. As she grew up, she developed a golden voice, and Dhan Singh engaged musicians and artists of repute from the neighboring kingdoms to teach her music and dance. Mandu was a part of the vast Mughal Empire. Akbar had appointed one of his courtiers, Baz Bahadur, as the governor. He used to visit the palaces around Mandu where the Mughals held sway. He thus came to Amritpur, and Dhan Singh received him with all courtesy and honor. He had come to know of the governor's love for music, so at his instance Roopmati sang for him. Baz Bahadur sat entrapped listening to her music. He was also captivated by her beauty, so much so he fell in love with Roopmati, and his visits to Amritpur became frequent. During one of his visits, he found an opportunity to propose marriage, but Roopmati was too cocky to give him a reply immediately. The governor thought it prudent not to insist on an answer, but their meetings continued. Roopmati did not forget the governor's proposal, but how could she agree to a marriage when there was so much social disparity between the governor and herself? Baz Bahadur soon realized that she was also in love with him, but a gentleman that he was, he would never think of forcing acceptance of his proposal. At the same time, he would profess his love for her. Roopmati now began to think of a way out of the predicament. One day, when Baz Bahadur reminded her of his proposal, she told him, I am the daughter of Narmada, and I must bathe in the sacred river, if not every day, at least on all auspicious days. How then can I leave Amritpur for a place like Mandu, which is far away from the river? She then went on to impose a near impossible condition. If the course of the river is changed to flow through Mandu, then I shall certainly marry you and come to reside in Mandu. His love for Roopmati was so intense that Baz Bahadur decided to take up the challenge thrown in by her. He walked up to the river alone and an axe in hand. He searched for a place where he could cut open a tributary, if not divert the wide river itself. He had hardly hit the ground when the goddess of the river rose before him and said, I am satisfied with the sincerity of your love for my daughter. Go back to your place where a sacred tamarind tree grows in the southern corner of the garden. Dig beneath the tree, and you will come upon a spring of clear water. It is a part of me. Make a pond when you take Roopmati to Mandu. She will not be parted from me. The goddess then disappeared. Baz Bahadur promptly went back to his place in Mandu, searched out a tamarind tree, and began digging in all earnestness. When the ground broke and a spring hit his face, he knew that his union with Roopmati was now only a matter of days. He had a beautiful lake formed around the spring. He called it Reva Kund, or Reva was one of the names of Narmada. A swimming pool for Roopmati was constructed beside the lake, to which fresh water from the lake was let in every day. Now Baj Bahadur formally approached Roopmati's foster father for her hand. Dhan Singh was only too happy to give his consent. After the wedding, Roopmati accompanied Baj Bahadur to Mandu, where the couple spent a carefree life filled with music and songs. Unfortunately, their happiness was short lived. The emperor found that his governor had neglected the administration in Mandu. He took over the administration into his hands. Baj Bahadur and Roopmati could not escape a tragic end.